皆さん、こんにちは。本日はご参加いただきありがとうございます。東京外国語大学の小林かすみです。
東京外国語大学の白井由美香です。
名古屋外国語大学の千葉正宗です。
私たちは WATCH 2022 WINTER for Sustainable Future のインターン生として参加しています。WATCH 2022 WINTER は映像翻訳を専門とする翻訳学校、日本映像翻訳アカデミーが主催しているイベントです。
本日は2人のゲストを招いてインタビューをします。本イベントで上映する作品の一つ、80億人の天使たち、地球と人類の未来の監督のヴィクター・ヴェーユとプロデューサーのテリー・スパールです。それでは最初の質問は千葉さんからお願いします。
So, Telly and Victor, thank you for joining us our meeting. So, let's just start with why did you decide to embark on this project? How did it all start?
So I'm 56 years old, and I've watched the world around me, continue to deteriorate in what I consider a short, time, and more land has been transformed by people displacing and eliminating the natural world around them. And I've seen the oceans be, emptied of sea life by us, and enormous amounts of pollution that continue to accumulate across our lands and throughout our oceans and up in our air. And I've been deeply moved by these changes, and I looked, into the causes and what were the, what I consider the best solutions to fixing, these growing environmental and human health problems. And I saw a drastic need, for the world to have an honest conversation about unsustainable population growth, as that core problem and as the core solution toward a safer and more sustainable future. So, I reached out to one of Victor's associates, a woman named Katya, who's a producer, and Katya Alexander said I had a great team behind me, Victor and the other folks that Victor's mentioned. And then we started our journey and came over to Japan and then India and the United States. Victor?
Yeah, well, for me, the story definitely begins when Terry reaches out. I've spoken to Katya, one of the lead producer on this film, and she worked closely with Terry to make the vision come through, and with all of us. And so Katya and I had done a couple documentaries together at the time. We were both extremely passionate about it. And when Terry came to us with this idea, it was definitely a daunting and large task. So it was definitely a journey that for me was extremely interesting and something that I wanted to embark on. I thought that after conversations with Terry, it was really clear to me that it was a subject that I really wanted to dedicate time to and to really figure out with Terry how to best share this story and how to best tell this in this subject, which is not only a taboo at times, but a difficult subject to speak of and speak about it in a hopeful and kind way.
Thank you for your meaningful comment. So I have a question. So I think you traveled many places to complete this movie, this project. So how long did it take to complete this project?
Do you mean from for the shooting portion or from pre-production to post-production end?
Yes, from pre-production.
I think 3 years, Terry, without counting, about 3 years.
And do you feel, Victor, that that's a good pace, or is that slow, or is that fast for a documentary?
I think that for the type of documentary that it was, and the way that we structured the film, I think it was a good pace. I think it was fine, and we shot over about a year because we lined up the perfect trip windows, so that took up a lot of time. And then I think it was about right for that. I think that definitely docs on different subjects could be done a lot faster. I really think that this wasn't the type of doc that you just make in 6 or 9 months. So I think for this doc, it made a lot of sense.
Thank you for comment. So our time is very limited. So let's go on to the next question. Next question is, the first part of your film takes place on Shikinejima here in Japan. Why did you decide to shoot there specifically? What impression did it leave on you?
Well, I'll start with that. Japan's the greatest country in the world. That's why we started there. I guess the real reason we started there was I had read this book called The Sixth Extinction, and it outlines in more depth what I mentioned in my previous comment, that our impact on the planet is causing irreversible damage. And the author talks about the five great extinctions, and one of the greatest ones being about 250 million years ago, in which the volcanoes that were erupting were emitting enormous amounts of CO2 into the atmosphere. And it was described over thousands of years, and the oceans changed dramatically. The acidification of the oceans and the CO2 and the reefs, the reefs collapsed, the sea creatures suffocated from a lack of oxygen. There was, the water was considered maybe 18 degrees warmer than normal ocean water. It killed all marine life, and it turned the seas into this sort of glassy, purple color that had poisonous bubbles. So, the acidification is a major issue that we're starting to see across the world. And when I reached out to the marine biologist who was in that book and said, we are interested in filming this situation, he said, well, you need to come to Japan, to the island of Shikinejima, because we have scientists from around the world who are gathering to study CO2 that's coming out of the ground, coming out of the ocean, out of the the seabed naturally, and we can study the effects of CO2 in concentrated levels in the ocean. And it's really good, I think, for your film, and really good to be able to show that to the world, what's happening to the oceans. So that's why we came to Japan.
And I think to bank off of that a little bit, with this film, we really tried that each location and each subject that we spoke of, we had a real boots on the ground experience. And that it was, you'll notice that this documentary, usually documentaries of this type have a narrator. We opted for not using a narrator and having the voice of true people. We don't doctor anything, it's just what they say. So we wanted to seek true authenticity, and with Jason Spencer Hall, going with him and Kazuo and their team, it was extremely amazing to be able to dive down, and our team really went down to the seabed to see what they were talking about. And it wasn't just us in a conference meeting somewhere completely different hearing about this. As a team, we were able to experience it and see it, and firsthand share visual representation of what these scientists are demonstrating.
Thank you for comments. Most Japanese loves eating fishes, but no one knows what happened under the surface of the sea. So this movie should be a good opportunity for them to know what happened under the surface of the sea.
I would like to ask you two about another Japan-related question, which is, as you may know, Japan has a problem of aging population and also declining birth rate. If other countries also experience the decline in population, like you suggested in your film. However, in Japan, both declining population and aging population is regarded as a problem because of tax decrease in tax income, shortage of labor, taking care of old parents. So I'm curious to know, what would you say to those countries, including Japan?
Well, a couple of things. I think it's important to understand that there's a narrative that is out there in the general, economic world and the public and with the journalists that say it's a problem. But is it a problem? I think we really have to look at Japan right now. If you look at the unemployment rate in Japan, it's at historical lows. I think it's maybe less than 3%. People are doing well. The GDP in Japan is very good. So the country is economically good. The people are by and large happy. What is important to understand is when you look at the available resources that Japan has as a country, the natural resources, the renewable resources, the fresh air and clean water, and the fisheries and the land and the ability for the country to absorb its waste. Right now, there are about 7 times more people for the country than what can be considered sustainable. The Japan is about 125 million people. The United States is about 340 million people. In Japan, a sustainable population level is, frankly, it's about 17 million people. So as a result, Japan relies heavily on many imports for the country, for its economy. It consumes enormous amounts of natural resources. You saw the part about the fisheries in the film and how the fish stocks are declining dramatically, all around Japan and across the world. So, Japan, like America, is responsible for a huge amount of pollution. CO2 emissions for the country average, over 1 billion tons a year. I mean, it's enormous. So the overall economy is good. Its employment rate is outstanding. Declining birth rates and population are actually a very good thing for Japan. People and government should not fear population decline. They shouldn't fear it in Japan. They shouldn't fear it in other countries. There are dozens of other countries that are going through this transition right now, and they're doing it well. And what's most exciting is the fewer citizens there are, the more resources there are for each and every one of us. And the more clean water, the more clean air, the more fish and less pollution. So it's really a beneficial thing that what Japan is going through. But unfortunately, there are people that don't think that way, and a lot of them want to continue to grow the economy and grow wealth and don't care about the environment or human health.
I think what I've also come to understand with many conversations with Terry and learning a lot about this subject, and when Terry is also speaking, I think that, and correct me if I'm wrong, Terry, there's not just an axis on the near future, but on the far future as well. It's not just looking at the next 15, 20 years, it's looking at the next 1500. And that's obviously, it's extremely difficult to project that far forward, but with the best of the knowledge that we have today, we can ask ourselves questions and have resolute facts and really think about our great-grandchildren's great-grandchildren and the world that they will have, because it is a fact that our population has heavily multiplied, and this is so far the only planet that can sustain us. So taking care of it is definitely, something we should do. And if we don't, like not Jason Hull Spencer, I forget who says this in the film, but the planet will eventually recover. It's us. It's our people that will have extremely great suffering, and we're the ones that will have less and less, and eventually it'll come to extremely difficult times.
Thank you. As we've just discussed, reducing population is a controversial topic to discuss, I believe. So I'm curious to know, while dealing with such a challenging topic, what was the biggest obstacle you faced while making this film?
I think it's something that was very important for me when making this was making sure that we had a film that didn't feel preachy, didn't feel like it was telling you to do anything, asking of you. it wasn't instructing or telling you that you do anything wrong if you don't do what the film suggests. The film was purely informational. It just an idea. It was in the hopes of entering the zeitgeist, in the hopes of influencing people, and also it is a very difficult subject when you just speak the words of overpopulation. But the route that we chose to tackle it, which is schooling for more people, and the way that this subject is approached, I think, is also a large figure and a large part of how we, tackle the subject. And it was definitely, it isn't an easy thing to speak about. And it's a lot easier to say, cut down less trees, because most people can agree to cut down less trees, but it is a very difficult conversation to have than to reduce population, because it is a personal and it's a choice of every single person. And I think that something that was really important for us was that there was no judgment from the beginning. Terry and I didn't want to make a film that came after or pointed fingers per se, just a film that shone a light to a potential future and backed it up with facts.
Well stated. I agree with everything Victor said. It's a challenging subject to take that subject and translate it on the screen. And Victor and his team, I think, did a wonderful job of not only just providing very objective information, but also delivering it in a very emotional way that people could very much relate to the folks who were in the film. So, I can't say enough for the talent that he and the other team and the editor did as far as creating this final product, which I think is very moving, and it's also very honest.
Thank you so much. I would like to pass on to Yumika now.
The next question I want to ask you is, can you give us some examples of what individual people living in Japan could do in their everyday life to help combat overpopulation and the degradation of the natural environment?
Well, I for one say you're doing a great job, because your fertility rate is below replacement. I think what's important is for people like you and people who see this film to not be afraid to embrace a declining population. It's not scary. It's not bad for the economy. It's we've grown and we can shrink gracefully. And the key thing is being in balance and being in harmony with nature. So there are only so many resources, and we have to live in harmony with what the planet can provide us. And so I think from the Japanese mindset, and same thing from the American mindset, we have to acknowledge that we're putting a lot of pressure on both human health and also on the environment, and we need to look at growing smaller as a beneficial thing for all, and will be a much better we'll be much better as a family. We'll be much better as a country from that process, and we should embrace it and not be afraid of it.
Thank you for your comments. I've never come up with the idea of decreasing population, so I hope that many people will accept this idea for the future from now. The next question is, could you tell us something about your next project?
Victor.
Yeah.
Tell us what you're doing in Vietnam.
Yeah. Well, I guess this is new for you too. I am currently here shooting a documentary about a musician named Ivan. He was extremely famous here in Vietnam in the 50s, 60s, and 70s. But at the end of the war, since he was a paragon, an example of somewhat Western music, even though he had very traditional Vietnamese music, he also made covers of House of the Rising Sun, had some surf rock, and had a real rock and roll soul. And so his music was by and large lost and destroyed at the end of the war. by the factions remaining. So I'm here with his granddaughter, and she and I are co-directing this film. We are going back from Hanoi to Saigon, recovering the lost art that he has behind, finding the original recordings, speaking to the brothers and sisters, and bringing back his music into the world, because for now it's been in most physical manner destroyed, but it still lives on in many of the people in Vietnam.
So I'm not a filmmaker. I was more the visionary of this specific subject, and I brought in the team of Victor and the other folks, that his colleagues. We are what I'm doing is I run a environmental nonprofit whose focus is on educating the public to the dangers of continued growth in population and consumption. And we advocate for making common sense decisions to achieve real sustainability. And we do that through that film. We do it through educational posters, educational content, and we demonstrate and do all kinds of different things to help educate the public to this issue or these issues. And so we'll probably do some more smaller types of videos, but I don't think we have another film in us, at least in the near future.
Just a quick remark for Terry. I filmed the exact moment where it went to 8 billion. That was like 2 weeks ago, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thank you for telling us your next project.
I'm personally curious. I heard that this film was awarded for many film awards. What do you, Terry and Victor, think was regarded well about your film?
I think something that came back pretty often was the sense of, I think, sincerity, kind of having a real, which is, one of the major pillars that we tried to approach, of having, touching this difficult subject with a real, again, kind of boots on the ground, really real stories, real people, meeting these individuals and trying to tell their stories in beautiful ways. I think that did well. And also I think a lot of it's a subject that hasn't really been seen in documentaries before, a subject that hasn't been touched upon, I think, too much. Terry, maybe, I feel like about the actual content and the reviews that we got there, you might have more insight than I do.
There are people who sometimes their belief doesn't allow them to look at what's happening in a critical manner, an objective way, and their beliefs overshadow them. But I think we have gotten a lot of claim and a lot of recognition and a lot of regard to this, to the film and its subject matter, and portraying it in again an honest and ethical and objective way. And so I think what makes me feel proud is that I think we did a very good job of bringing in a subject that is very important, that to the forefront, that needs to be discussed. And I value the strength of all the people who were in the film and who were behind the scenes to put together what I think was just a terrific 79 minutes.
Thank you. We really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and answering our questions. Do you have some kind of comment or message you'd like to share with the Japanese audience?
I'm sure Victor will add on to what I have to say. Is it was my first trip to Japan when we came to film, and every single person that we met couldn't have been more kind and more welcoming and more helpful. Your citizens and your country are just a lovely experience for me personally, and I think for the whole team. it was a pleasure, and I can't wait. I hope to someday visit again because you have a wonderful culture and I can't speak more warmly about the country.
I absolutely agree as well. I have since my youngest age been infatuated with Japan. I find it to be an absolutely incredible country. And I have, whether it's folklore, myth, or a lot of what comes with the country and is shared with the world is something that I'm greatly passionate about. To have the privilege to have started our film with Kazuo's mix of a poem and a warning was one of the greatest honors to put that as the beginning of our film.
Thank you. And I hope more Japanese people watch your movie and accept the message. And thank you so much. And big thanks to everyone watching this interview. And we hope you enjoy watching 8 Billion Angels if you haven't already, as well as other films screened as part of WATCH 2022.
Thank you. Thank you, Kobayashi, Yumika, Chiba, and
Thank
the rest
you,
of you all.